Welcome. I'll let Robert kick it off with some additional remarks, so jump right in, Robert.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Hampshire. I lead the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology at the Department of Transportation. And it really is a true honor to be here at the 100th meeting of the VTC and the 75th anniversary of VTC as a section within IEEE. I'm an electrical engineer by undergrad training, and so it's always a great pleasure to be here, and certainly to be here with my colleague, Egan Smith, who's the managing director for our ITS Joint Program Office at USDOT. And they really are the tip of the spear as we think about deploying transportation technology into the nation's transportation system. And it's not transportation for transportation's sake. What you're going to hear from us today is really why the men and women at the U.S. Department of Transportation and many transportation professionals come to work every day. And that's to keep you, your loved ones, your community safe. You're going to hear a lot today about safety as we are on the verge of deploying groundbreaking technology in the transportation sector. I would say that, again, a lot of the work that we'll discuss today are advancements for transforming the future of transportation, particularly around vehicle to everything or vehicle V2X communications, particularly in roadway safety. That's not a foreign topic to this audience. We know much of the V2X work, message sets, network layers. The approach is built on the work of this community. And so I want to thank you all for your work and the continued work. We're going to challenge you all to continue to push forward so we can live out this vision for a safe transportation system. You know, particularly in a world where we have vehicles, infrastructure, and everything around it connected. When we think about sharing data in real time, particularly for the purpose of preventing crashes and enhancing roadway safety. You know, the power of V2X technology, as we think for us, is really providing that 360 situational awareness around drivers, but not just drivers, vulnerable road users. Can you see the car that's blocking you? You know, the car in front of the car, seeing around the corner. We know on foggy days, low visibility days, and other things that V2X is uniquely capable of reducing crashes. So in particular, you know, we've at the U.S. Department of Transportation with partners and entire ecosystem have developed a comprehensive strategy, V2X strategy, that particularly is scalable, one that is secure, cyber secure, protects privacy. Those are two separate things. Secure and private, and particularly are interoperable. So we're past the days of one-off proprietary type of solutions. The plan we're putting forward, and we'll talk about it here today, is about interoperable connectivity. And so today, particularly this V2X strategy that we're laying out supports our National Roadway Safety Strategy. That's the approach the department is taking, a all-hands approach, all tools in the toolbox approach to reducing fatal crashes. And that's the National Roadway Safety Strategy. And V2X and connectivity is one of those tools that the department, from Secretary Buttigieg all the way throughout the entire department and ecosystem, are looking towards as a framework. And we'll say a bit more about that as we get going today. But again, before I turn it over to Egan here to kind of get us started we wanted to do this as a conversation. We'll have a conversation with you all too later, so think about questions. We'll do a Q&A. But before I do that, I do want to again just say it's really a great honor to be here. I want to thank the hosts, particularly. I'll take personal privilege that, you know, as an electrical engineer in my background, as a researcher, you know, before taking this appointed role here in the department, leading I lead all research and technology efforts in the Department of Transportation and serve as the Chief Science Officer. So it's a great pleasure to be here and look forward certainly to the conversation with Egan, but also any questions that you all might have as we get towards the end. So with that, I see some good friends in the audience as well. So thank you. And Egan.
Thanks, Robert. And I'd like to say, well, first of all, I love the chronological mural that was out there. We see a lot of familiar faces. It's the folks that are developing these technologies that we get to introduce into solving problems worth solving. And as Robert indicated, they're to get things from the research into deployment. And that's why this concept for what we've developed here with the deployment plan is so critical. It allows us to look at other opportunities too as well to start that sort of collaboration. So as I dive down into the questions, I'm going to have the first question is sort of the why are we doing this? What's the reason for doing this? Is it just great research? Let's use some technology to solve some problems. But why? The why. We've had a lot of conversations about that on the road since we started to look at using this V2X technology to deploy this strategy to connect vehicles. So I'll pose that question directly to you, Robert. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, I kind of hinted at it a little bit in our intro, but we do have what we consider a public health crisis in this country around roadway fatalities. We know that pace increased even during the pandemic, but we know that although we've decreased fatalities in the last 6 or 7 quarters, we still have over 42,000 people in this country that die every year in vehicle crashes. The numbers are sobering in that it's hard to put a face behind, you got to remember there's a face behind all the 42,000 people. That's just in this country. And that let alone the millions that are injured in vehicle crashes. And so we always like to start, and this is led by Secretary Buttigieg, start with safety and not just as numbers, but people. In venues like this, I've always told myself that I would, reference my dear cousin, who was the same age as me, who died in a fatal car crash on a highway, rural 2-lane highway, low visibility, at night, sort of swerved across her lane into oncoming traffic with a truck. And I always think about okay, how can we prevent that? And particularly, I think of some of the vehicle technology solutions and things that you all are working on in this room and have worked on, both on the vehicle side, on the sensing side, that could prevent this. And so this is part of the why I think everyone, I won't dwell too long on that, but I think everyone has, of the 42,000 people, have that, a why and what that means for the community. And so we're not, what we've done in the department, again, is put together a all hands on deck approach to get to zero fatalities. That's Vision Zero approach. That's part of our National Roadway Safety Strategy that really does take a systems approach. I'm still I'm an engineer at heart, so I love the idea of a systems approach, and that's something the department put together, and that really is looking at, and Egan, you've been involved in this, I'll pull you into this too, but the components of the safe system approach really do include many aspects of both behavior and vehicles and technology. You might say a little bit more about that.
Well, it's behavior, it's technology, but one of the things we've been trying to focus on with Robert is how do you utilize technology in this system that we have? That's very complicated, it's bureaucratic. How do you really deploy technology, knowing that technology keeps evolving? I mean, there's a lot of back and forth conversations. Folks have different opinions, even in this venue, on 5G, for example. How do you utilize the technology to move things forward, to start reducing the number of roadway crashes and deaths that affect not just the folks who pass away, but the families that are left behind? How do you utilize that? And that's what this concept of collaboration and working with the actual folks in the industry to move things forward. And the safe system approach looks at safe people, safe vehicles, post-crash care, safer speeds, and safer roads. So you can see there's a number of elements in there that where technology can be utilized to really help prevent these crashes and reduce the number of deaths.
Yeah, and I'd say, and I'll just double down on that. I mean, there are technology approaches and solutions in each one of these buckets in the safe system approach. And one that I've been really somewhat surprised, but the impact on, post-crash care. If you think about, the responses from EMS and fire, our department, we have a number, I saw data that 30% of those who die in a fatal car crash are alive when the ambulance shows up. Right? They're alive. And so you think about the opportunity, particularly to save those with post-crash care. How can we improve maybe their response times, the kind of equipment that EMS has on the vehicle, other approaches you can think about, ways to a drone or UAS in supplies, get it on site before ambulances get there. There's a lot of interesting vehicle technology things and other approaches, and just say, for example, that post-crash care bucket, which I think is sometimes underappreciated, but it's really ripe for innovation as well.
Yeah, post-crash care is critical. Technology to get the vehicles to the spot on time, so we can implement that care that's needed to keep them alive, to reduce the numbers even further. So we've had a conversation about technology, and there's these great concepts to use, but my next question is going to be, why technology now? I mean, we've talked about technology for years, and it's over 100 years now. We've seen a lot of our colleagues on the mural out front, and we still haven't started to really implement things. So why technology now? How is now different? What have you done? Well, basically, what have you done for us lately, Robert?
Part of, and I'll start with, again, Secretary Buttigieg, who you see on the screen, in 2023 announced the draft, the V2X National Deployment Plan. And I want to start with the Secretary because it takes leadership at this moment, and we have that leadership to say, this is a national crisis, the fatalities we're seeing on the road, and we're going to take leadership and lean in to put out a vision, but not just a vision, but convene and resources around addressing and getting to Vision Zero. So I'll start with leadership. Right, I think right now we have the leadership to do that. We're in a moment where the infrastructure bill, there's resources that Congress has made available that the department is executing on. Better part of $1 trillion in the infrastructure bill, much of which goes through Department of Transportation. And so we have that opportunity. We have leadership, we have resources, and we'll get into this shortly, but we also have tremendous partners. This is not something we're attempting to do on our own at the federal level. This is something at the local level, state, academia, people in this room to build on. And so I would say leadership, a vision, and partnerships, and also a plan. So, and so part of that leadership is that, we've did a set of convenings, but I'll turn it to you, Egan, maybe say a little bit about the plan and then how we got there and who has been engaged, because I think that's an important piece.
And just for effect, I wanted to wave the plan around while Robert was talking about that, because we actually have a final plan. And me being immersed in bureaucracy for a number of years, I know this is a really big deal. This is the way that the government works to organize things so that we can move forward over a number of years. And that's going to be the critical pathway for this forward, is working on using technology, and as technology as it evolves, getting the right standards in place so we can evolve the solutions as well. and start deploying this technology to address those things we just mentioned, post-crash care, getting vehicles to the site a lot quicker than normal. The effort is unique in that it involved a number of stakeholders to get to the table to kind of, in August of 2022, we had the very first summit where folks came to us and said, well, the federal government needs to do X, Y, Z. You need to have a really different way of thinking, not just depend on legislation or developing some sort of a requirement for folks to deploy this specific technology. It's going to be technology neutral. Technology is going to evolve. So my next question I'm going to throw out on the table is, who are the key stakeholders that we've worked with in developing this plan?
Yeah, and so we'll put up, for effect again, we have, National Saving Lives with Connectivity Deployment Plan. You can find on our website at DOT and ITSJPO's website. But again, this was a process of partnerships and engagement, and that includes. And we start with communities, state and local governments who are really at the front lines of deploying infrastructure and partnerships to make sure that the intersections are equipped. Community is involved and know what this technology is, right? We can't just deploy this technology on infrastructure and vehicles, and consumers or public don't know what those are. So that's important partners that we've listened to. OEMs, of course, but also that includes OEMs, I'll say both automakers and equipment makers of telecom equipment and network providers. So this is an interoperable plan, meaning that we're laying out a vision and we're open to all approaches to get to that vision of connectivity, right? And so that's how it's technology neutral. But also within the federal government, we've worked very closely with the FCC on getting the rules, the final rule, in fact, forthcoming for a 5.9 ban, but also partners across NTIA, federal partners, federal, non-federal, other agencies. We've did listening, a lot of work went into this plan, and the point of this plan is to be ambitious. We said, let's lean forward. None of this looking back in the past. Here we are. Let's deploy now. Let's deploy immediately to save lives now. And that was always the mantra. Let's deploy now. Let's keep moving. We're moving forward. And we had a great team of collaborators and partners to help us do that. Again, a plan is the beginning. It's like the end of the beginning. Yep. We did a plan. That's sort of the end. Now it's implementation is where we are. And so it's been a community approach, collective action, and alliances.
So yeah, and I'd like to add to that. And we have a list of stakeholders here now, but I think the stakeholders now are really everyone. Once we start to develop the plan and start to deploy, it's about everyone. We have OEMs, that long list of things that you see on the screen there. But those were the stakeholders that we utilized over the last 2 years to have this conversation about how can the government help move this forward, what role do we have, and how can we develop this sort of a collaborative plan that leads to the deployment of this technology and the evolution of technology to replace the technology that's in there this year and the following year. How do you develop that sort of a concept?
Yeah.
And
actually, let me just jump in and just one set of partners that I want to make sure we highlight are international partners, because certainly Egan and the ITSJPO and the team work very closely, particularly with European partners on standards. South Korea, Japan, there's a global standards, and this plan, us moving forward together on V2X and connectivity, has certainly caught the attention of our international colleagues. ITS JBO, Egan, and we were ITS World Congress in Dubai was just a few weeks ago. We had a really great presence and really had really terrific meetings, bilateral meetings and others with our counterparts in Europe and Asia to communicate this plan and to make sure we're synced up, particularly in the global context.
Yeah. And we're starting to see some of our international partners moving along the same path. In fact, after we talk to them about the plan, they move in that same direction, which is always good for us in the international stage, but it also helps with us on delivering and manufacturing too as well. So one of the things I want to talk about now is what are the specifics in the plan? I know it's, I'm speaking from the government side, but the plan includes so many other folks. You see the list of stakeholders, and it's kind of like everyone is involved. It's not just folks, it's, in the bacon and eggs sandwich, they say the chicken just has a minor investment, but the the other guy, he's all in. Yeah. So my next question is, let's talk some specifics. Yeah. What do we hope to achieve with this plan?
Yeah, we'll start. The plan lays out milestones over three different time horizons, but I really want to focus here 2028. That a few years to have what we call 12 interoperable, cyber-secure deployments across the country. So that's a goal, 12. That's cities, medium-sized or large-sized cities across the country that have deployed this interoperable V2X deployments. This is a goal in 2028 that is ambitious, but I think we're well along the way. We'll talk about, we've already have deployments that are already in the ground and operating, but also those are in the planning and building out stages. Those deployments include, particularly on the OEM side with vehicle manufacturers, to have at least 2 OEMs committed to having capable, connectivity-capable vehicles by 2028, as well as the device suppliers and supply chain ready, a secure supply chain ready to deploy there, and as well as a component that we can make sure we come back to on the cybersecure side, when we talk about the credential management, certificate management services, to make sure that we have, continue to build out that secure ecosystem of certificate management. And I know also you see here on the screen, goals as well for our infrastructure owner and operators to have. We're starting with intersections. I think intersections are really that kind of leverage point in the transportation system at intersections. So 25% of intersections having V2X in our top metros across the country. So, and we have activities underway right now to spur intersection safety and connectivity, as well as 20% deployment on the national highway system. I don't know, Egan, you want to maybe talk about some other aspects of the plan?
Well, one of the things I want to do is also revisit the past. Like I said, we are a research that leads towards development organization. And one of the things we have done and have been involved in, and Robert has been part of that too as well, even before he got to the DOT, it was a demonstration of the concept of connected vehicles for the safety pilots. We also had an actual real-world demonstration with the connected vehicle pilots in Tampa, Wyoming, and New York. And these locations have moved forward, and they still have some of that sort of technology in place that has been solving problems worth solving. And that is what we kind of use to have this, to start developing that community of stakeholders. And it leads to my next question, which is, as Robert started to hint to, how is this even possible to have these sort of goals, and how do we really achieve that? What's our skin in the game?
Yeah, some of the tools in the toolbox are going to be certainly things from the federal government side. So this is a plan that's not a federal government plan. This is a plan for all of us. That's state, locals, that's academia, that's researchers. But certainly as us, we're convening and leading this vision, so we have skin in the game. And part of the skin in the game has been on the grant funding side, the federal grants. And so just in August, we announced $60 million worth of awards for large-scale deployments of interoperable connectivity. The idea here is have deployments that are in 3 places that really are saturating that geography, really having dense deployments of the applications. And so we've selected Utah DOT, and that's really leading a multi-state collaboration with Colorado, Utah, and who else is in there? Colorado and Wyoming is probably in there too, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, Wyoming is in there.
And also in Arizona, out in the Phoenix, Maricopa County area deployment. And there again, the goal, they're shooting for 25% of all their intersections being connected infrastructure. That is both direct 5.9 V2X, but also network-based over cellular networks, 5G. And so there's really great partnership and depth there. It turns out there's automated vehicle testing in Arizona, in Phoenix, and so that could be a nice sort of connected, automated platform and test bed that's emerging. Not just test bed, deployment that's emerging in Phoenix. And then down in Texas A&M and Houston area, deployments there that really are taking on unique use cases that you might see in Houston, particularly on the weather side, flooding side, but also vulnerable users. And those are just 3 that we just announced in August, let alone the other deployments that we funded over the years in the V2X cohorts.
Yeah, so we also have a V2X cohort that has at least, I think it's up to almost 45 different members around the country. You see it's illustrated on the map there as well. These folks, a lot of them are using their own funding. Some are using grant funding from Attain grant. Some are using smart grant funding. So there's a number of other developments that are occurring that are moving us in this direction to make us very confident. And one of the things I wanted to point out, it's not just a one-off solution with the 3 sites. Maricopa County is looking to improve the safety of vulnerable road users as well as the efficiency of transit, emergency vehicles, and freight fleets. And that gets back to why we say, why are we doing this? So they're going to demonstrate that. We're going to have that sort of information in our hands to, start moving in the direction of thinking about these things as countermeasures, safety countermeasures. Texas, they're trying to address safety and mobility challenges with vulnerable road users, special events, traffic, flooding, and hurricane evacuation. And Utah is much more advanced. They've been deploying things at intersections for quite some time. So they're going to really take things to the next level, as Robert suggested, and have try to focus on addressing the needs of intersections and work zones and along rural corridors along a lot of Utah. And what we hope to achieve with this, it's not just a one-off where we go into V2X technology, we come up with a strategy to have this sort of collaborative approach where government is working with industry, identifying all these partners. But it leads to an opportunity for us to think of, hey, maybe that we can do this for other things too as well. This is not just one-off for V2X, but there are other solutions that maybe can benefit from this sort of collaboration. And one of the things I want to highlight with Robert, we sort of touched on his portfolio, but his portfolio is greater than just V2X. And my next question to you, Robert, is to kind of elaborate on your portfolio. And do you see this as an opportunity to use this sort of strategy for some of these other things too as well?
Yeah, I mean, the approach we've taken here again is partnerships and alliances. We know, particularly on the technology side, it moves so quickly. We know that federal government, we can provide a vision about the outcomes, reducing fatalities, in particular use cases, but really is up to our partners, up to researchers, private sector, really then to rally the technology solutions, emerging approaches. And we want to really foster those emerging approaches to take on those challenges that we've identified. And so we've done that here with V2X for connectivity and this ecosystem. We call it an innovation ecosystem around transportation. A lot of the learnings and things that we're going to not just foster that, but also share the learning with each other. And so that's what this Smart Community Resource Center does, is that as we're fostering you all, supporting grants and partners, that we're able to then learn from each other is a key approach. So we've taken that in V2X, but we've done that in other transportation technology domains. For example, I think I was talking to someone earlier about GPS and navigation. We know that's another important aspect and utility and platform for transportation. That's one that's under the domain of my office that I run, that Egan's a part of. We're the lead for all civilian uses of PNT, position, navigation, and timing, and GPS in the country. So DOD is in charge of the military uses. We're in charge of the civilian uses. And so we've fostered an ecosystem there, for example, that it was a set of vendors, partners to deploy backup and complementary GPS, complementary PNT solutions. And so that's a similar approach we're taking, fostering the ecosystem, leading in the lead. We must have sufficient position, navigation, and timing, which, by the way, is not separate from V2X, because we know all the basic safety messages and connectivity relies on reliable, secure navigation, positioning. That's also true in areas on advanced air mobility. I know maybe this is a surface. Is this all surface or not? Is it also advanced air mobility, UAS? We have a whole cluster as well on transportation technology that we've taken this similar approach. So throughout the department and the portfolio that we lead, be it connected vehicles, connected infrastructure, be it on the automation side, be it on advanced air mobility, be it PNT and GPS. I'm probably forgetting some electric vehicles and others that really we want to take the approach of being, and this is what the secretary said, like in his innovation principles. We want to make sure that we are being forward-leaning. We want to make sure that it's not technology for technology's sake, and so that way we're not NSF. We're very different than NSF, and it's mission-driven. We know that we want, particularly, and I didn't mention this, but I know as we're kind of moving a little bit to close here for the Q&A, the secretary for the innovation principles is really to support and continue a thriving economy and workers. Through all this technology, we're talking technology, but really this is for the sake of people. And that includes the end users, but also those workers who build, operate these systems. And so we have a responsibility. That's something that the secretary has really encouraged and pushed us on. And that's part of the V2X plan as a workforce training and aspects. Egan's office leads a professional development of making sure that state and locals understand and can operate and contribute to the development of these connectivity systems. And so I'll end, for this part of the answer, I'll end here with the people. As we're deploying these technologies, and even part of our research programs, let's be sure to include those workers who have to operate these systems. There's unique insights that they probably have from the front lines that can feed back in. If these are network engineers that have to calibrate the network, or sensor, folks who have to, I don't know if you guys have, calibrated a vehicle sensor. That's not something, it's very difficult. You're like, oh my gosh, this system's not working. Why? The sensors are not calibrated well, but guess what? You need technicians and automotive, maintenance professionals that know how to operate these systems. So, and that's all included in the connectivity in the V2X plan.
Yeah, and as Robert is indicating, as we start to scale with these things, if these, as these things get off the ground, the workforce's requirement is going to sort of change, and there's an definitely an opportunity there. And one of the other things I wanted to point out is, Robert did mention, he's doing things like digital infrastructure and these other things that can benefit from this sort of collaboration to come to a consensus and what it means and how to move forward in those arenas too as well. So there's a lot of opportunities here, and I want to leave some time, a few minutes at least, to open up for the audience to ask questions based on the conversations we've been having. So I'll open up to the audience. I think there's some mics around. Yep, here we go.
Maybe introduce yourself, and if you're with an organization, just say the organization, and then try to get to a question as soon as possible.
Thank you for a very stimulating discussion. It's a pleasure to see and learn what the DOT is doing. I'm from a company working on some 6G technologies called Cohere, but this is not about what I'm working on. It's been a while since I really looked at the cellular V2X versus DSRC landscape, and so I apologize if this is a naive question, but it seems to me at least 5, 10, 7 years back, the elephant in the room was always these two technologies. There seems to be a split in frequency allocation. I was just scrambling to look up the references you were pointing to earlier. In 1968, the government mandated the use of safety belts, right? I think it's way more complicated now. Practically speaking, these beautiful plans you've shown, how does it work when you've got major car manufacturers who I think still haven't agreed on a consensus of how to move forward? So what does interoperability mean?
Yeah, that's a great, I'll start with this. Great question. We're, the FCC developed rules for the band using CV2X. So that conversation, DSRC versus CV2X, that's over. The CV2X, the rules are laid out in the FCC rulemaking. We've collaborated closely with them for the last 3 years, meeting with them weekly, almost monthly, to get the parameters, to get the needs of transportation stakeholders into those rules. And so that piece is there. Now, in the plan and our activities, that's one piece of regulatory uncertainty that's off the table. In this plan and in our investments over the last, and convenings over the last 3.5 years, we've put well over $100 million or so into deployments, but not just the money, it's this plan. We have the infrastructure side of the picture. Folks are deploying, and so that's, within, with that infrastructure deployed, more of an incentive on the vehicle side to get deployments. And so we have, productive conversations and moving forward with OEMs. Several have committed, in limited ways so far, but committed to having vehicles with these technologies. I see Qualcomm is one of the members on the stage here. They certainly are deploying. And so that's the ecosystem we're in now, and one is forward-leaning, and I think has momentum from when last time you took a look.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out in the plan itself, we call out 2 OEMs by the end of 2028, and that's based on our conversations with those folks over the last couple of years. And I want to give Robert some real kudos for the conversation on the federal side, because that's one of the things they pointed out to us back in 2022 when the industry came together. The federal government needs to start collaborating. DOT needs to be speaking to FCC, NTIA, having those kind of conversations to finalize these things. And we worked with them over the last couple of years to provide waivers, and we're up to the point now where they're going to finalize the product. So folks can start deploying now, and they have started deploying now, and we're in the process of getting that finalized outcome from the FCC. That allows the OEMs to say, hey, well, now we have a final, let's move forward. Great question, by the way. Oh. Oh, okay.
Okay, well, okay.